Hey guys, what's up? This is Trav with Idaho 2A Tactical. Hey, I just wanted to go over a couple things. Um, I want to talk about the removal of the trigger and safety from a B&T lower. This is the polymer lower. Some of the people who want to put an Elftman trigger in had a couple questions on doing this, and it's pretty straightforward. You would think that this is not a big deal, and it's not. So let's dive in and just kind of talk about a couple of the nuances, all right? So we want the hammer forward. I'm gonna knock out both the hammer pin, the trigger pin, and then we're gonna remove the safety. And there's something important to talk about on the safety, and that's particularly the springs that come shooting out if you're not careful. I like to use an anodized Allen tool. I like anodized stuff because it doesn't mar these trigger pins. And I like to just give the trigger pins a nice tap. You get them started and they will just push out the rest of the way. The nice thing about this tool is it keeps the hammer retained. So when you go to take it off and the hammer wants to shoot out, it doesn't go too far. And we're going to take apart the trigger. Let's take this out. That comes out pretty easily. And that's going to fall apart. So there's a disconnector. And then there's a spring in here. I highly recommend you just get real careful about pulling that out. One thing you can do is just use the pins on here to take some of these springs out, right? So you can use it to slide that out. And then what I like to do is I like to use the hammer spring to remove this safety cap. So that's the right-hand side. And what we're gonna do is there's a little pin in here, and let me explain it real quick. I'm sure it's really simple. And you already know how this works, but I'm just going to explain it. So underneath that cap is a retaining pin that is spring loaded. So there's a spring on the bottom side, and it keeps pressure on that little hole, and it keeps it from sliding out, right? So we're gonna push this down, and then we'll be able to slide that in and out. I guess just slide it out, right? We're not sliding it in and out. That's disturbing. Anyway, back to work. So pin goes in, push down. We'll get a little bit of a purchase. If you see how we had that little bit of movement, that's all we need. Now we're going to take this out. And if you notice on the bottom side, we've got a little bit of a purchase started. So I'd recommend putting your thumb over this because if you don't, this spring and pin under here will shoot across the room, and they'll probably go a good maybe 10 feet. So you're going to have a tough time finding them. So thumb over it, just push it up and off. And as you take tension off, there's the retaining pin. Cap comes off. Retaining pin we got to be really careful with. Set that to the side. And now there's a spring inside here. And that spring is not lubricated. It'll fall out to gravity. So make sure you take it out. There's the spring. If you don't take it out now, what's going to end up happening is you're going to start working with the lower and moving it around back and forth. It's going to fall out. It'll land on the ground. And then you're going to spend the next half an hour swearing as you're looking around on the ground trying to find the thing. All right, so removal of the safety. I recommend using your dominant hand, whatever your dominant thumb is, to put pressure on the end of this. And you're just going to rock this back and forth. And as it's kind of between the set points, when you're kind of in the between there, that's when it's going to be able to slide out. One thing you're going to have to note is that the trigger assembly is not hooking underneath here. Otherwise, this will never slide out for you. I actually had that happen on a trigger earlier today. I'm like, man, why is this thing not coming out? So there you go. That's why I didn't want to come out. So I'm just going to start rocking it back and forth. Now, here's something really important. Underneath this safety barrel here are the detent plungers. I don't know a better word for them, but there's two detent plastic devices under here that are spring loaded, and they basically allow the safety to set into the fire position or the safe position. That's that definitive click that you get. So I highly recommend you put your thumb over this to keep them from launching out, and you're going to keep rocking this as you're pulling it out, and just rock it back and forth. And sometimes you have to push down on this barrel, and it just helps it kind of let that pull out. So it's that easy. So now we just take out the trigger shoe and the trigger assembly. That's out. And then one other thing I want to show you. So I'm going to remove one of these plungers, and I'm going to do it Probably not the most smart way, but I'm gonna just cover this up. I'm gonna launch it out and see it just popped right out. There it is laying down in there. Okay, so these are kind of retained in by a little bit of grease. And this is the B&T spring. Okay, see the white lithium grease there? So these springs are pretty stiff. You know, so you'll hear sometimes people note the safety is like a little stiff. We sell replacement springs, and I'll tell you the springs that we sell are pretty lightweight. So if you're thinking about using your firearm as maybe a more of a backpack gun for whatever, you're out in your car with your family and you're living in a metropolitan area that's a high risk for riots and who knows what else that could get your family injured, then you probably should just leave the standard springs in, even though they're pretty stiff. I don't really recommend making any modifications to your firearm if you're going to be using it for some kind of self-defense situation, because if you do have to use it, you're probably going to go to court, and that's probably going to come up that you modified your firearm. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying, you know, think about the consequences of making modifications to your firearm. Anyway, we sell these springs. They're lighter weight, and they're available to whoever wants them. And then one last comment I want to make. I don't know if I can get this off real easily. Let's see if I can just... Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a bugger. All right. So that screw down in there, this is really important. You know what, if you want to bear with me for like 30 seconds, let me grab a screwdriver and a tool, and I'll take that out and I'll show you why this is important. Give me just a minute. Actually, we don't need a minute, we just need seconds. Let's see if I got the right tool on here for the job. Yeah, sweet. Got it on the first go. All right. So this is pretty important. Some people like to use Magpul grips, and you can use Magpul grips, but the thing that you have to be aware of, and this is a big deal. So we took this out, and this is a retention nut, and that nut allows, and I'm sure you can figure this out, so it's just probably rhetorical, me just talking about it. Anyhow, that screw is going to lock into this nut. And why is that important? Well, here's the problem. Some of the Magpul screws are they're longer. And so what I've had one of the customers had this happen to him, and it was a big deal. So let's see if I can get this back in here the right way. All right, so that's just, well, it slides right out on that back side, but it goes in the stiff on the other side. All right, so there's that nut, right? So imagine this screw is a bit longer, maybe down to here, and we're driving it in, and now it's starting to bottom out, but the grip is still loose, and you're like, you don't know this is bottoming out, but your grip is still loose, so you're like, well, I got to tighten it down more and snug it down to get the grip from being wobbly. Well, what's happening is on these longer screws, they're driving down into this polymer here, and they're putting tension on here, and it'll break this plastic housing area, and then you're kind of hosed. Now you're stuck buying a new one of these lowers because this is broken, and there's really no great workaround once this breaks. So just keep in mind, if you're switching the grips, that's fine, but I highly recommend that you keep an eye on how long the new screw is, and maybe just stick to the standard screw if you can do it. Anyway, those are my 2 cents. I hope this video has helped somebody out there. You know, the nuance of using the hammer pin to remove the safety paddle. That's not something I thought of when I first started getting into B&T. And if you have some thoughts and you want to leave some comments about maybe an easier way to do something that maybe I'm overlooking, which is totally plausible, totally possible, please, leave the comment. I'm open to improving myself and making life easier for me and for other people, and maybe I can pass it on too. So I hope you guys take care, and I hope this helped somebody out there. You guys take care. We'll do the Elfman install maybe in the next week. All right, bye.